So you're sewing tonight?
Not right this moment. I was sewing earlier.
Well, you're sewing that.
No, I'm not, you dork.
You're not supposed to call me that.
Well, then don't be a dork.
Is that the butterfly wings you're making for Adelaide?
It's not butterfly wings. It's a little cardigan.
I'm going to say that enough that she's going to be disappointed
excited.
that it's not going to be butterfly wings.
No, she's really excited.
It's a big doily, though.
It actually is. Yes,
it is.
Doily with. Yes, I know it is. It's actually a doily with sleeves.
Yeah.
It's exactly what it is.
Sleeve doily.
It is.
All right.
It's a circle cardigan. She's excited.
All right. Speaking of excited, we're going to get into chapter 7, which is we're getting perilously close to the end of this here. All right. So chapter 7. Mike tries to process what has happened as the ship docks with E-215. They'd come out to find it, and now that they had, he had no idea how they would get back to their time where they belonged. There was concern on his part he might never see his wife again, but he had to shove those fears down as they had greater concerns to address. They didn't have a lot of time, as Altilian forces were certainly searching for them. The airlock between the two ships opens, and Mike finds himself face-to-face with John Webster. "I'm really glad to see you, John," he says. "The feeling's mutual, but how did you get here?" John asks as he steps into the Vindicator. He shakes his head. "I didn't think you'd be out in this. I figured the Peace Restorer would be the first ship we saw, if we ever saw any of the ones we knew. It's easy to give up hope out here. It just seems so hopeless, really." "I wish I was the bearer of actual good news, John. We went to the same spot in space where you disappeared and brought one individual who we thought could actually help. It was a mistake." "Who did you bring?" John asks as they make their way down the corridor which leads to the bridge. Oh, I already read that. Okay, alright. That's where it ends with Dradgen running into himself. Gora feels like he is dealing with a mad scientist and not his father as he follows him to the depths of the ship. Gora hasn't been blown away by the technology at work in the ship, and knowing that the Vindicator has got away while being a ship unknown to his father, he's starting to have doubts creep into his mind for the first time in his life. There had never been a normal father-son bond between Geyer and Gora. It had always been about doing what's right for their kind and raising Gora to be a military man. There was never any room for another point of view, and Gora's mother had no say in how he was raised. This was about raising the future leader of Altel and making sure he was prepared for whatever this galaxy would throw his way. It was almost always business and career, emotions not needed, for the task at hand. In moments like these, Gora thinks back to his childhood and suppresses regrets. He had sometimes wished for a more loving and nurturing home. Even while his father told him emotions were a sign of weakness, he sometimes had to choke back tears or risk a beating from his father. There had been many scars Geyer had given him, both physical and emotional, and seeing him now, and like this, was bringing all those memories of those scars back to him. There had been open-hand slaps, closed-fist punches, kicks, whips with a belt, and there had been straight-out beatings, one which included a glass bottle being smashed across the face of Gora. Even as the new leader of his world, Gora had always felt the eyes of his father watching him. He had always known he would have to save his father's life, that he'd have to become the great leader he had been conditioned to be, but the nagging doubts ate away at him inside. Some moments of pain flooded back at the worst of times, and this was one of them. When he had been handed a crown symbolic of his leadership over Altel, he'd envisioned a belt being handed to him by his father, not the crown. There had never been a discussion between the two of them regarding Gora's inner conflict as it would lead to Geyer beating him again. That had been his answer to anything that could stand between his training and a perfect performance by his son. Geyer had been raised in such a manner by his father that he felt that the best way to raise Gora and make it that this was the way he felt was best to raise Gora and make him a man. There would never be a sweet and tender moment between these two, and a way to a greater understanding of why things were the way they were. It's a dark room that Geyer takes them to. There's a chamber filled with water here. As they get closer, there are partially formed Altilians floating in that water. The sight of them makes Gora want to vomit, but that would be a sign of weakness, and that would lead to a beating. Geyer beams with pride as he looks inside at his pride and joy. "You see, my son, the immortality riddle is really only a matter of a point of view. I'm Geyer. I am the rightful leader of our world now and forever. What you're seeing here is the greatest of all my works. Time travel brought me a new appreciation for life. It made me certain that I was the only being truly meant to rule this galaxy. I saw the past, the present, and the future. I'm more of a god than an Altilian now, my son. Gora's at a loss, not quite sure how to react to the ravings of his father. At a time when he feels he's the rightful leader of Altil, Gora quickly realizes his father only sees him as a stopgap between his reigns as true commander of their planet. His heart sinks, and he tries to keep his spirits up outwardly towards his father, more out of fear than any sincere happiness with anything he's just been told. So what is our next move, he asks. Well, first let's go to what we have in the tank here. This water is filled with nutrients and is set up that these copies of myself may wait their turn to become me. You see, at any sign that I may be at risk or that I may perish, my memories and essence is given to one of these fetal clones that are then grown to the age I am now, so that no one knows that I'm ever gone. That is how I am immortal. I can live 100 lives over and still have an endless supply of clones awaiting my next near-fatal moment. Nothing is fatal to me now, he says with a broad smile. A chill runs down Gora's spine. These are the ravings of a madman. He doesn't know this Geyer who stands near him now. He was not born this Altilian man. There is no Geyer left, as he was killed on Altair and again in the future. This has to be at least the third copy of Geyer who has lived. He wants to ask how many deaths his father has been through, but he knows he doesn't really want the answer. He's already heard enough to keep him awake at nights for a solid week. But what do we do about the Vindicator, he asks. Geyer pauses and looks over at his son. You have concerns, do you? I explain my immortality to you, and I get back concerned for what our insignificant enemies might do next. Gora, our enemies will be destroyed, and then we will return to Altil in your time, so that we may restore sanity to our people and take our place as the leaders of the entire galaxy. I will kill Sabal with my bare hands in front of them. The coward he truly is. I won't argue with you on that one, Father. I am just concerned due to the fact that they have shot myself and Ver before we arrived here. They must have a reason. Could have shot myself and Ver before we arrived here. They must have a reason for not doing so, Gora explains, still careful not to show any fear or weakness in the presence of the man masquerading as his father. Memories of Geyer and genetic material from Geyer do not make this man Geyer. It is a copy, and Gora is resisting the urge to kill it. They likely felt some connection to you from your time in captivity. I will give you this much. You did a fine job with the self-destruct, taking out so much life on Earth. That was fine work by you, my son. It inspired me to carry out an attack with that kind of ferocity and level of destruction. Now, what we need to do is fulfill our duty and bringing that attack about before we head home, Geyer explains. What attack? Though his heart is already sank, Gora asks that question. Geyer actually laughs at it. You have seen it, my son. They showed it to you. My brilliance in bringing about an end to the war will be seen when I bring the Altilians the head of Jason Marcus, the man responsible for the attack that I orchestrated. They will bow before me for saving them from further attacks to follow up my initial attack. If they do not do as I say, I will wipe them out. There is no emotion in that last line, no shred of doubt either. It is a cold and calculated sentence meant to convey how deadly serious this Geyer clone is. Gora staggers backward. He can't hide his illness as his stomach churns now. The room seems to spin around him, and he steadies himself against the wall behind him. You killed all of those Altilians, our own people. Geyer scowls. I did what had to be done. On both sides there was restraint. A war should have been glorious, bloody, and violent, but it was slow and calculated. I didn't build our forces so that they would sit and rust waiting to be used. I'm disgusted every day when I think about how quickly and easily Earth could have been dispatched. Faltaries as well. The humans are nothing to us. A step down on the evolutionary ladder from us. We are superior, and a slow and steady series of battles makes me ill when we are capable of so much more. You underestimate them, Father, Gora says, and he cannot believe he is saying it. I sat in a jail cell for 6 months, when we could have killed any of them who we imprisoned. They fed me, clothed me as well. I know they hated me, and my ultimate betrayal will make them hate me more. I just don't know that setting fire to 2 worlds would help us at home, since our own people were divided on the war efforts. You kill them all, my son. You kill all who oppose you until they are silenced, and then you stand alone if need be. This is a big universe with plenty of galaxies to be conquered. Geyer says as he again looks in at the copies of himself floating around his macabre fish tank. So we work along the lines of prophecies, and then we set fire to even those who follow them to make ourselves the king of nothing? Gora asks in shock. What good is it to rule the galaxy if the galaxy's in ruins? Is that not why we enslaved Altair instead of burning it to the ground? Was it not the fight that Conley had in it which caused it to be burned to cinders? Geyer shakes his head and turns to face the sun again. Conley was the beginning of making things right, Gora. That wasn't moving along fast enough for my liking when I was leader, so out of boredom, I raised their world to the ground. It's that simple. You were always so weak-minded. Now Gora really wants to kill the thing that is playing the role of his father. Weak-minded? Every time you whipped me with a belt, I took it. Every time you screamed at me for hours, I took that too. Every time you saw fit to make an example out of me, I took it. I never raised a hand to you. I never fought back. I always did as I was told, Gora growls. And I've always been secretly sickened by it. You don't have a backbone, no personality of your own. You were so easy to control. Much like your mother, Geyer says. Gora moves without thinking. He grabs the thing pretending to be his father by the throat and knees it in the stomach, bringing it to its knees. His eyes are wide with rage and every part of his body is quaking as he squeezes with all of his might. I've heard enough from you. Geyer reaches for something to hit Gora with and finds a metal chair. He picks it up and hits the son over the head with it, which allows him to break free of the choke, and then he headbutts the son before grabbing him by the throat. I should have known better than to let you become the leader of Voltel and think you could stand up to me. I should never have let this charade continue for this long. Gora grabs Geyer by the throat, and they both are trying to choke each other out in a choke battle. Gora then finds the strength in his anger to run Geyer backwards into the Altilian-filled fish tank, and the glass actually shatters. The floor is covered in the gasping, barely able to breathe infant Altilians on the floor while Geyer panics and tries to collect the green writhing masses and looks panicked. How could you? Geyer kicks his almost father in the face and sends him to the floor, floor among the dying brood of Geyer clones. You're not immortal now, Gora says as he walks out of the madhouse and towards his own freedom. This is the best he's ever felt in his whole life. That's why you don't bring somebody down to where all your clones are.
Right.
That's why you don't do that. This is my one weakness. Okay. Gotcha.
Good to know.
The crew of the Arcane has been tense since word spread of the visitors from the past taking both Dradgen and Jason Marcus away with them. No one has said a word to Alan Webster since that took place, and most are steering clear of them altogether. Among those staying away is Randy Jenkins, a man who has a secret to keep. His role in recent events is not something he's proud of. He's been hiding from a lot of people recently while he conveys anything he hears to the enemy. It's not a role he particularly likes, but he does it out of a sense of duty to his family. His parents had been captured after an attack by Altil against a civilian vessel traveling from Earth to Falteres. He was told to either cooperate with Geyer or that his parents would be killed. He had been shown video of his parents with Altilians holding them at gunpoint. It had chilled him to the bone, and he'd been working for the enemy ever since. It had been 6 months since the capture of his parents, and Randy was losing hope that they would still be alive. He hadn't seen a new video of them speaking to him in over 4 months now, and the videos were never live, so he could ask them anything. Other than the timestamp on the video, there would be no way of knowing when each video was shot. It was part of what was slowly driving him mad, the guilt of turning against his own people, against the desire to see his parents alive again. As he makes his way through the hallways that lead back to his quarters, he finds himself face to face with Alan Webster. "Commander, good to see you," he says as his voice cracks. "Did I startle you?" Alan asks. "Well, I just came around the corner and you're there. Tends to be a little jarring. I was just headed back to my quarters." "I've had a full shift and need some sleep," Randy lies. Alan shakes his head. "I'm afraid I need to have a little talk with you," he says, and 2 armed guards suddenly flank Randy. "What's this about?" Randy doesn't know why he's playing dumb here. He just keeps seeing images of his parents flashing in his mind. When he thinks about confessing his sins to anyone here, he's pretty sure that there are other spies among the crew, but he can't ask or try to figure out who they might be, just as he has to protect himself and those he loves. "Just come with us," Alan says, and they lead him in another direction. There is no further conversation from Alan as he leads Randy towards a room on this level usually used as a dining area or a party room. It's been stripped down, so there's 1 table and only 2 chairs present, where Alan leads Randy with the 2 guards into it. What's going on? Randy asks as the armed men leads him to one of the two chairs while Alan sits on the other across the table. The double doors to the room are then closed, and Alan leans on the table, trying to look Randy in the eye. As you may or may not know, our recent visitors took Dredgton from us, and they also grabbed Jason Marcus while they were at it. Now, since then, I've quickly done some research, and it would appear I'm the prick here. Can you shed some light on how I became the prick? Alan asks. The air's thick, and Randy feels like his throat is tightening. He has strict orders. He's been told that if his role becomes public knowledge, his parents will die, and then he will die. He has been told there is nothing that could protect him, and that his fate has been sealed. He opens his mouth to speak, but words elude him. Looks like you could use a glass of water, Alan says, and he reaches under the table and grabs a bottle of water and a plastic cup. He twists the cap off of the water and pours it into the cup with a smile on his face. He slides the cup across the table to Randy. See, people are dying, and apparently the fate of the galaxy might rest upon what you know. If Dredgton was right, that means that the Arcane has to get ready for some fighting here. Randy gulps down the water so fast it trickles down his chin and falls to the floor. He touches his forehead to find he's sweating quite a bit already. He knows he couldn't look more guilty and that he's not going to be allowed to leave the room until they hear what they have to. In the back of his mind, he finally says goodbye to his parents. They have my parents, he begins. Took them over 6 months ago when I was first assigned to the Arcane. What do they know? Alan asks coldly. There's too much on the line to worry about Randy's parents right now. Anything I know, they know. I think they were upset that I didn't have information about how the cloak works. I know they were really interested in Jason Marcus. They were talking about attacking this ship to take him, and they have special plans for him. Who is your contact within their ranks? Alan is having a hard time not flipping out and turning the table upside down. All of his men and women had gone through extensive background checks and personality tests. This was not supposed to happen, not amongst his crew. His world's been turned on its side. I didn't believe it when he introduced himself to me. He told me no one would ever believe me if I told. He said my parents would be dead when I said anything. That he has ways of finding out who I told as soon as I talk. He said that there are many spies among every crew in the fleet. Just spit it out already. Alan says as his patience reaches the near boiling point. It's Geyer. I don't know how, but it's Geyer. He's ruthless, a leader who's killed billions. He contacted me through a simple video call in my quarters. He showed me footage of my parents in his custody and told me they die unless he gets information from me. I wanted to tell him to go to hell, but I don't have anyone else. I never married, never had kids, or even a damn pet. My parents are it for me, as far as I'm concerned. Alan stands up and looks at the guards. Keep an eye on him. I'm going to the bridge. I have work to do. Yes, sir, one guard says with a nod while Alan exits the room. And we're up to... Let's see. Okay. It's not easy to find balance in the darkness. Everything's stumbling so fast. This is the next scene. Everything's stumbling so fast, it's like waking from a bad dream. But Geyer knows it was no dream. He stumbles over various objects that could have grown into the next Geyer to replace the current model as he looks for a switch to turn on the light, any light in the room. He also has to be careful to avoid any areas in this room which has sharp objects which could damage the now mortal Geyer if he's not aware of where he is. Geyer had never been afraid of the dark. In fact, he had always taken great pride in not being afraid of anything. Now, as he staggers around looking for light, he realizes mortality is suddenly terrifying to him. He had been immortal mere minutes ago, but he knows that all of the fetal Altilians meant to carry on his legacy were now dead. They could only survive for a few moments outside of their nutrient-filled tank, and that tank was meant to hold them at that developmental stage. They were not capable of living outside of it, and he realized now how foolish he was. It had been said that Geyer in the past had an ego that was likely going to cause his downfall. As he looks back on his relationship with his son, he sees this as likely true. If he had kept this place as a secret and treated his son as someone not to be treated fully, this would never have happened and everything would still be taking place as he had intended. He only had himself to blame here, and he would use vengeance to make it right. When he locates the light switch and illuminates the room around him, Geyer finds that his clones are all dead on the floor as he feared. His room is in shambles, a laboratory meant to enable him to maintain his immortality. This room is now a monument to his stupidity, and he cannot allow such a place to exist without exacting revenge on his supposed son. He was the true Geyer. There was no doubt in his mind, and his son's disrespect was unacceptable. This had happened due to his weakness, and now Gora could be out on his ship, making a mockery of him. Again, this was on him, and he, the true Geyer, had to make it right. He opens the door, steps out into the hallway. This was his ship. This was his crew. He straightens up and marches down the hallway, and one of the members of his crew looks back and stares straight at him in shock. "Is there something wrong, Corporal?" "We were told you'd been injured." Gora had assumed command. "How long ago?" Geyer asks, resisting the urge to choke the innocent Altilian to death for sharing this upsetting information. "He announced it maybe 5 minutes ago," the corporal says, stepping away from the enraged commander. Geyer decides strangling this man will not help him. Now he has to strangle the one person who will make him feel better. It is time for him to finally do what had to be done and kill his son. This is what fate is leading him to do, restoring balance to a relationship he feels is forever broken. He heads to the nearest elevator and waits for the doors to close before saying "bridge" to activate the elevator. It roars to life and quickly vaults him from the bottom of the ship to the top. His sword is a ship made for battle, and even the elevators are set for fast action. And sword is capitalized because that's the name of the ship. This is his ship, his creation, and his son is hijacking it from him. The door opens and Geyer steps into the bridge with his gun drawn. Gora is there, and there are armed guards there waiting around him, guns pointed at him and not at his traitor of his son. "So this is a mutiny, is it?" he asks of his soldiers. "You are a fraud, father of mine. I have explained what you are, and the crew would rather follow me than you. I am the true leader. You are merely a copy of the leader." Gora smiles at Geyer in a defiant manner he would never have dared with the original version of his father. Geyer glares at the man nearest to him, who is taking him with his firearm. "This is mutiny, and it will not be tolerated." "This requires an investigation, Commander. We need to know the truth," the man replies. Geyer slowly nods, then draws his gun and kills 3 of the Altilians aiming at him before diving behind a table in the corner as they finally process what's happening and open fire. The adrenaline's flowing through Geyer's veins again, and he is more certain than ever that he has a stand to take, one which will add to his legend. He waits until he hears footsteps moving towards him, reaches out of his hiding spot, and manages to kill a 4th Altilian. That leaves only 3 left, and they all drop their weapons and back away. "You will maintain your position," Gora orders the men to no avail. Geyer stands tall and out in the open. He strides over to his son with his gun still drawn. "I will commend you for standing up to me. I will also forgive you for things you have done this day, but you will serve under me. I will not serve under my son." Gora looks uncertain now that no one is standing up for him any longer. The rebellion against his cloned father is apparently over thanks to 4 expert kills made by the almost Geyer. This is a terrible turn of events. "I want to attack Falteres. I want to attack them now, not wait any longer. I want this war to end. This ship can deliver a death blow, and we can return from the future as gods. I can accept you not as my father, but as a fellow commander of our forces. No one outside of this crew will ever know what I know." Geyer then hits Gora in the face with the butt end of his gun, sending him down to the floor in a process. Geyer then smiles as he stands over his son, the dominant male in this relationship as the creators had intended. "I accept your suggestion. The next time you rebel, you die." The self-confident Gora didn't last long. Deep down he knows this relationship is doomed, but he doesn't have the dominant position now, and he needs to wait for his next chance to wrestle the power away from this madman clone. So there you go. Apparently Lilybell didn't like that scene at all. So she's growling. So there you go. We are getting closer and closer to the end. We are now
Not happy kitty.
345 pages away from the end. So thank you guys for watching, for supporting the channel, and for all that wonderful stuff. And I will talk to you guys again soon.